For a lot of you watching out there, I can imagine you've got a few questions, so let me answer them right away. The big question is probably, wow, this site is still around? Yes, Neopets is still around. In fact, it never died or shut down or went anywhere. Another anticipated question would be, what is Neopets? Since at least a few of you out there are likely young enough to have missed its heydays. Neopets was, and is, a web browser game where users raise fantastical pets within the world of Neopia. Activities the player can engage in include dressing their pets up, battling against opponents in an arena, engaging in commerce with both NPCs and other players, or communicating on the official forums. The site also has a variety of old Flash-based games to play that have been preserved for modern browsers, but these are just a few examples of what you can do. I'm talking about Neopets today because for about the last year and a half, I've gotten back into logging onto the site, and it's been on my mind. Aside from stopping a few months ago, I was a pretty regular daily user. Naturally, this leads to experience and then opinions. Player experiences with Neopets will naturally vary too much to do a full analysis, so I offer my thoughts on Neopets in 2025. It will also be a bit of content to fill the gap between longer videos. I've created an alternate account for the purpose of this video, so we can go through the new player experience fresh. Even in my few months of absence from the site, the account creation side of things has already changed. Neopass is essentially a single login that manages your Neopets account, but also other games. Fairy's Hope and Tales of Descartia are mobile games, separate from the Neopets.com site, but under the same IP. They're not relevant to the main site experience, so I won't be diving into those. If you already have a Neopets account, the game will actually give you 500,000 Neopoints if you connect it to Neopass. A nice bit of coin, even if you don't care about the mobile games. Pet creation has changed in terms of the UI, but it's still a very simple process. Pick a pet species, pick one of the 4 basic colors, and if you want, pick one of these fruity mystery dungeon looking scarves. You can select some pre-made flavor attributes for your Neopet and some very, very basic starting stats. Other than the scarves, your options when creating a pet have remained pretty much identical for years. Kids with basic reading levels shouldn't have too much trouble. Which I guess is funny since most of the current player base is at an age where they start waking up with back pain. Decided on a Techo for the first pet, flipped a coin for the gender and for our first pet's name. I went with this idea of Salamander's historical association with fire, also acknowledging the pet's blue coloration. Yeah, I was, and still am, that type of person who names their imaginary bits of code after mythological things. Probably going to butcher Latin here, but her name is truncated for the scientific name for the marine iguana, Amblyrhynchus cristatus, and suffixed by the word for torch or fire. In all fairness though, to get a name that doesn't resemble an Xbox 360 gamertag, this kind of effort is somewhat required. The game has been around so long that a lot of regular words have already been used for previous pet names, active or not. This is despite past purges of abandoned accounts too. Fortunately, the planned 2024 purge never happened, so if you have an old account, it might still be accessible. God, these ads are really obnoxious. Too bad Chrome has been giving ad blockers the old of mice and men treatment lately. You can customize your profile further, but a lot of this is related to the user forums, which are surprisingly still active. We'll look at that later. The site and its features are now open to you, so let's talk about how the site has been upgraded for browsers in 2025. In years past, smartphones weren't a consideration, and there's a ton of pages on the site that are mostly unchanged from ye olden days. As someone who uses the site on desktop and mobile in roughly equal measure, it is fairly awkward to navigate pages that weren't designed with mobile users in mind. To some degree, that should be temporarily expected. To their credit, the Neopets team have put in quite a bit of effort to make the site more mobile-friendly, and in general better on the higher resolutions of modern monitors. Many older pages will at least have a consistent newer header, even if the body content is old. Bigger buttons, larger images and icons, as well as wider screen space for content are all beneficial changes made. It can just be very jarring to jump from these modern pages to older ones. Keep in mind, the homepage revamp announcement was revealed in mid-2023. Over 2 years later, we still have features like NeoMail and the auctions still using these now cramped old pages. Especially on mobile, it can be frustrating to use. What's really awful is how the site performs, both on mobile and desktop. Navigating different pages is consistently sluggish and slow. The site often has rich media, in this case referring to things like images and animation. This shouldn't be that heavy of a load for modern equipment, though, which makes me think it's a server-side issue. The slowness makes navigating multiple pages and tabs feel awful to me, especially when trying to do basic activities like buying items or navigating the world. But that's not all. At this point, I've lost count of the times where the body content of a page just doesn't load, requiring me to reload. This seems to be the most common on pages with rich media. I've tried different browsers, both mobile and desktop, and while desktop is less frequent with problems, it's not immune. It's not just me either. Looking over at Reddit's Neopets section, others have complained of similar issues. One minigame is particularly problematic in this regard. Not in the frequency of problems, but how much the user is screwed over when it happens. Trudy's Surprise is a daily virtual slot machine to spin that has increasing rewards, usually categorized as one of the many dailies you can do. If you are diligent in keeping up with your daily spin, at the end of the required 25 days, you are rewarded with a hefty 100,000 Neopoints. This is on top of the several thousand gained each day throughout the month just from doing the slot. 3 times now, I have lost a Trudy streak because the site's page just completely broke for the day. Once when it affected many users, the team sent out an apology and gave out gifted currency serving as both appeasement and reimbursement. I'm guessing the other 2 outages were specific to my user experience, but goddamn, how frustrating. Don't get me started on the ads. They're everywhere. In late 2023, when I started playing again, all of the ads were limited to Neopets-related features or events. Over time, the site opened to ads from regular advertisers, which isn't the problem. I get it, my grind is based on ad revenue too. The problem is that, in my experience, these ads contribute to aforementioned performance issues when loading web pages. Even if the page isn't reloaded, sometimes the ads will refresh themselves and cycle through different ones. This is normal for most sites, but on Neopets it has a tendency to cause lag in loading page elements, scroll speed, and especially games. Every single time I play Mirka Chase 2 for one of my dailies, I can feel the lag affecting the game. Lost a few runs because of that too, when it lags at very inopportune moments. What a nuisance. And listen, I understand getting that bag, we all have bills to pay. This would be a lot more forgivable were it not for this. The Neopets team seems to be focusing a lot of attention towards the money-making site features. I'm talking about the NC Mall, Neopets Premium, and merchandise. The term live service wasn't really used when Neopets was created, but the monetization models we all know by that name were already beginning to form in the MMO genre. The NC Mall was created around the same mid to late 2000s time. Play on Neopets for even a short amount of time, and you'll no doubt notice a polite but frequent prodding to buy the paid services or the fancy goods found in the NC Mall. Not to mention the development of the 2 mobile games, Tales of Decardia and Fairy's Hope, both of which contain in-app purchases. So yeah, it's cool to have a brand new official Neopet species for an example, but the core of the franchise, the Neopets.com site, still has a lot of work that needs to be done. It's not as if you can't strive for site updates and new content both. As a user, I am asking for more of a balance. A user survey isn't satisfying enough, so here I am writing this all out. Also, please make Castle Battles playable again. Thank you, Smile. Okay, we've got the big grievances out of the way. Listen, I still like Neopets, but I understand why many users are disgruntled and/or logging off. My hiatus until making this video was entirely because of frustrations with site performance. The one instance of reimbursement was appreciated, but losing my Trudy streak a 3rd time was the last straw. But okay, let's say you are willing to look past these issues and engage with the site. How are the available activities? I'm not sure if Neopets.com itself counts as a game overall, but it shares a lot of common activities with many online games out there, and I guess it wouldn't be inaccurate to describe it as an MMO of sorts. Weirdly, it does feel natural to say, I'm playing Neopets. You've got the expected pet care mechanics, but there's browser games, a player economy, player housing, forums, and even some RPG mechanics for the Battle Dome. So far, the subjects I've discussed are overarching across the site, so let's focus on specific parts or activities, especially the ones I've gravitated towards. First off, caring for your pet or pets is a pretty universal activity all players will engage in. Even though Neopets can't starve to death, they still have hunger meters as well as other parameters. This includes happiness, clothes, and pets of their own. Personally, maintaining their hunger is top priority because even on some small level, it makes me sad or guilty to see them unhappy. Food can be obtained very easily from shops, both official and player-owned, but the former is generally easier. They have limited stock before a reset, but it's quicker to obtain. Usually pretty cheap too, depending on what you buy. Even better are the locations that give out food daily. Things like the giant omelet and giant jelly, which give out food that can be used multiple times. You can usually find unwanted food items at donation spots like the rubbish pile and money tree. Which sounds awful, sure, but it's quick, free, and I don't have to click through a bunch of slow-ass screens to bring home the bacon. If you are poor enough, you can access the Neopets Soup Kitchen, which also gives free meals. When first playing as a kid, I depended a lot on this, but nowadays the location is comically unnecessary as features like Trudy's, daily quests, and other things shower you with so many Neopoints. You'd have to literally try to be so impoverished to need the free soup. What? It takes a couple of days for a Neopet to go from full to hungry again, so it's quite easy to sustain 2 or 3 pets. If you got more, then it can become somewhat of a balancing act. Ultimately, there's no consequences anyway, it's all down to your personal conscience. Other pet care includes grooming and playing with toys, which I've always found strange. Not the activity, just the fact that you can get by with only a single grooming item and a single toy. I guess Neopets do not get the ick from sharing a comb. Neopets is full of both toys and useless items, and you will quickly have your inventory filled up with all kinds of junk. The inventory item limit of 50 is quite a pain. Reaching it won't stop you from receiving items, but it will stop you from purchasing them. A higher item limit is something many players have been asking for years for. The current solution is to transfer them into your safety deposit box, which just makes me wonder why the two can't simply be combined. It's just busy work to transfer them in and out. For the fashion-inclined player, dressing up one's pet is a worthwhile activity. There's a ton of clothing items in the game. Every pet has access to species-specific sets out there, but a lot of items can be worn universally. At first, the species limits were confusing and annoying, but I understand now. Neopets have a lot of varying body shapes, so illustrating 50+ ways a single pair of pants can be worn is a massive amount of work. This isn't Gaia Online, where characters more or less have the same body types. Still, there's a ton of cosmetic styles for every pet, so go wild if you want to personalize your pets. On the opposite side of fashion is equipment and the Battle Dome. As said before, Neopets have simple RPG stats used in a combat game. You can also equip your pet with weapons, gear, and spells. Those can be obtained from the game itself as reward drops, but all the ones I've gotten were very weak, barely worth even selling. There are good starting items out there, but getting them nowadays pretty much requires outside knowledge. No surprise, but the player economy is the best place to get good gear. Raising stats for the Battle Dome can be very grindy. Codestone items can be exchanged for training sessions at certain world locations like the Mystery Island Training School. These stones can be found as reward drops as well as traded. A training session takes real time to complete, and frankly, I had to look at a third-party tutorial to understand the systems in general. Stat training is limited by your pet's level, which also has to be trained. After some dabbling, it seems very much like a long-term grind, if that's your thing. Inside the Battle Dome itself, I found the gameplay to be a lot less intimidating than the previous systems. You and your opponent take turns trading attacks, with elemental energy resources consumed to perform special abilities. If you've played any turn-based RPG, you'll be able to understand the Battle Dome. What also makes the experience easier to get into was the fact that I could select easier or harder versions of each fight. The first battle I engaged in ended up being surprisingly easy, so if the Battle Dome interests you but you feel intimidated, you'll be fine. That said, to be honest, my interest isn't really there, mostly due to the Codestone grind. I'm still admittedly very inexperienced with the stat and skill side of things still, so I don't know, perhaps I'll try to get into it more. Moving on, the other games on Neopets were primarily based in Flash, and since that's gone, all those games are lost to time, correct? Well, no, not entirely. Many of them have been preserved, especially the most popular ones, like Ice Cream Machine, Hassie Bounce, etc. My shit was Escape from Meridell Castle. I'm very impressed the Neopets team actually took the time to preserve a bunch of them. I figured they would just let them disappear. There's more games that still need updating to be playable though. Please make Castle Battles playable again, haha smile.
Fuck you!
Also, as much as a tall order it would be, I would like to see more of these games made. The ones from the past are very basic, yes, and usually just a Neopets-themed version of other old Flash games. Nonetheless, I think creators can make some genuinely creative games with the knowledge and tools available now. But then again, it's probably more lucrative to do what they're doing now with their other projects and stuff them with microtransactions. I mean, it's been very successful with Roblox, for example. Moving on, in the recent past, there's been an issue with games not giving Neopoints when you upload your score. This seems to have been fixed in the past couple months, or maybe the issue just stopped happening for me. Also, it's a small thing, but while the web pages load slow enough to be frustrating, the games themselves load very fast. I remember a time years ago, with much weaker hardware, these could take a couple minutes to load. The future is now. But yeah, overall the games are fine. They represent the time they were created in and were likely created by a small team, if not single individuals. They can be basic in scope, rough, and unpolished, so keep that in mind. Moving on, Neo homes are basically player housing. Oh. Well, that's weird. The quest log is a pretty motivating feature, I find. It's a typical checklist of daily tasks that give rewards. Neopets isn't a mobile game yet, but this is one of those ubiquitous mobile game things that try and influence players to log in every day. The daily quests are pretty simple, usually involving tasks like buying a couple items, feeding a pet, playing a game, etc. Even a task that costs money like purchases or spinning daily wheels are more than reimbursed with the NP rewards from doing the task. If you do all your daily quests, you get an extra 20,000 NP too. Not bad. Do the whole 7-day streak and you'll gain a randomized reward item. Of course, their value does vary, but they seem to be very valuable items in the player economy. Transformation potions, paintbrushes, clothes, rare negs, stamps, or other collectible items. I have a strong suspicion that this feature, combined with Trudy Surprise, is a further contributor to the already inflating player economy. Not from the amount of money you get necessarily, but the fact that every player has access to these sources, and they're very easy to find. Still, they're a great way to earn lots of currency very quickly. The quest log was added in 2023, so it's very much a feature born in the era of gacha games and engagement driving, for lack of a better word. I'm well aware that it's a psychological manipulation tactic. Another worthwhile type of quest I've been into during my playtime were the treasure maps. There are certain unlockable locations in the Neopets world that can be accessed by collecting all 9 pieces of a map. Some pieces like the Forgotten Shore, which are so easy to get people will throw their extras into the money tree. I even find myself needing to rid myself of extra pieces. For the more expensive pieces like the Lab Ray, they're harder to get, being rewards from fairy quests or the pricey daily wheels. As if this is RuneScape, the easiest way to get them is to simply buy them from other players via trading. The Forgotten Shore and Secret Lab Ray are the 2 main ones for me until I unlock the rest. The former is simply another daily, but if you're very lucky you can get an egg for one of the unlockable Neopet species. The Lab Ray, however, is a daily where a selected Neopet is hit with a random effect. This can be gaining or losing stats, changing gender, color, or even species. Most people have a specific lab pet they use and focus their Lab Ray uses on it. You can turn your pet into some very rare variants this way, with luck. Rare pets themselves are something many players strive for. There's unlockable species, sure, like drakes, crocs, and others, but I'm referring to the paintbrushes. Paintbrush items transform a pet into a themed variant or color. Like most items, they're usually purchasable from other players and can get very expensive. Some completely change the artwork of the pet too, and I find these ones usually look pretty good. Usually. Some of the edgier ones can look silly when applied to a goofy-looking species, but it's one of those things where the variety is wide enough to appeal to many preferences, so I leave that one up to you. Some of the more common paintbrushes, usually just single colors, can be obtained as weekly quest rewards, which is pretty cool. Makes them more accessible to new players. If I want rare pets though, I prefer to do what's called pound surfing. Neopets has a virtual pet pound where unwanted pets are placed to be adopted by other players. When player accounts are banned, supposedly their pets are also placed in the pound. There's a subset of players who hang around the pound, refreshing the page over and over to re-roll the random pound pets shown. How would I describe what this feels like? Well...
What's for lunch?
It's Hungry Hungry Hippos! Hungry Hungry Hippos!
Let's go gambling! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it! Aw, dang it!
Yeah, that's about right. Pets that are considered high value tend to be rare variants or having a normal name that doesn't look like an email address. Honestly, I can't think of an easier way to get rare pets. The ones you see here I had tamed within a day or two. The only thing stopping me from getting more was the default pet limit. I ain't spending money on Neocash for more pet slots. The Reddit Neopets Discord has a specific chat for pound surfing, and people there are pretty cool. They'll usually post good pets available to take if they haven't claimed it themselves. Pound surfing isn't exactly exciting though. About 95% of the time, it's just spamming F5 through pages like this. There's something weirdly addictive about it to me. Part of that, I imagine, is having a soft spot for things that are abandoned or unwanted, but I also like the fact that it's completely free. As long as you have an open pet slot, there's no risk of losing resources, like, say, spinning the wheel of extravagance in hopes of a paintbrush. It's competitive too, technically, since the high-value pets are often snatched up very quickly. What can I say? I love to surf. Oh, and if you start seeing electric mohogs showing up in the pound, just stay away until the evil one goes back to sleep. Overall, though, personally, the dailies, quest logs, and pound surfing when I can are enough to keep me motivated to log in every day. The rewards are both consistent and worthwhile for the effort involved, even if my little rat brain is being manipulated by rewards. Though, I can't help but wonder about long-term goals when playing. Like, yeah, you can just log in to accumulate currency, but why? What is the point of it all? Like with a lot of MMO-type games or communities, it really has to do with what you enjoy doing. For a lot of players, it seems they really like collecting. Players have access to item galleries that can display chosen items. These players will usually pick a type of item to collect, such as plushies, negs, food, or whatever really. I've seen players collect holiday items, pet-specific items, colors, really any kind of subject matter. On top of that, there are forum avatars, official stamp albums, and digital trading cards to collect. Relatively speaking, I guess these could be the closest thing to achievement hunting in Neopets. I'll be honest though, collection is not for me. I bring it up because it may interest you or other viewers out there, and I don't know, maybe I just like being a little devil on your shoulder. There is also the social aspect of Neopets, specifically the Neoboards. This is the site's forum, and it operates pretty much like any forum. Let's take a look and see what people are talking about. Which Diary of a Wimpy Kid character are you? Neopets.com is bad because Neopets.com is sucks. Why is Ryan Reynolds famous? Camel spiders are actually kind of cute if you really look at them. Okay, no. Absolutely not. This is what the people discuss. Truly, I feel like I'm back in 2008. In all seriousness, forums just aren't really my thing anymore. But Neopets has its own interesting user base, if that interests you. Oh, and there's The Void Within. It can be described as an ongoing interactive site-wide event and webcomic, complete with unique Battledome fights, quests, rewards, and forum threads. You can see the influence of the threat within the story in many places in Neopia. NPCs, vendors, and UI elements will have a dull gray appearance. Even the giant omelet is gray. That's really cool, I admit, but you know, I'm just not interested in the comic. When character dialogue is going on, they use these speech bubbles with portraits and center-aligned body copy, and it's honestly distracting. The actual comic sections with the panels that light up when you hover the mouse on them, that's pretty neat though. It would help, again, if the web page is loaded properly. The comic pages themselves struggle to load often. I don't know, I'm open to being convinced, but the rewards just don't convince me to continue reading. That's pretty much all of the activities I was able to engage in. So at the end of the day, how is Neopets in 2025? If I may be honest, it seems to be struggling. On one hand, the fact it has regrown its audience is nothing short of incredible. The franchise has a history of being sold around to different companies throughout the 2010s, with some of the most meme-worthy being related to NFTs and Scientology. From what I understand, the user base was already in decline for years, but those last two influences drew a lot of anger and cynicism. Since 2023, when these influences were mostly shaken off, the number of active users has pretty much skyrocketed to 500,000 people. It's hard not to feel impressed by that. People do get invested in a redemption story. On the other hand, there's a ton of work that needs to be done on the site itself, and in the past couple years of casual play, I haven't noticed much being done about it. In fact, issues like intrusive ads and slow web speeds feel like they've only gotten worse. As it is now, the site does have a lot of activities and content to do. Activities like collecting items, the Battle Dome, and others can occupy players for a long time. Dailies on the quest log work as a way to keep players logging in every day to acquire currencies to spend on these activities. Besides that, there's just a lot of variety in activities, at least the ones that still work. And yeah, as much as I complain about the Flash games that still need updating, castle battles please, the amount currently on offer is respectable. So the Neopets site overall has a lot of substance. More updates do seem to be on the way, if slow in coming. And at the end of the day, Neopets themselves are inherently appealing to a lot of people. Despite everything that's happened in the site's history, despite the current issues, that isn't likely to change. My biggest concern ultimately is the priority of updated features. There's still too many pre-existing features, games, and overall site layout things that haven't been improved. Yeah, I dislike the heavy ads and site performance most of all, but I'm willing to put up with these things for now. However, as the Neopets team has rolled out new things for the site, it's overwhelmingly been new content. Which isn't bad, but this new stuff is focused around the flashy content, like the Void Within, or money-making avenues, like the NC Mall, merchandise, and Neopets Premium. Yes, it's cool we got a new Neopet species, sure, and artwork for rare paints are getting better looking versions, great. But if the core experience of using the site is so hamstrung by the problems I've brought up, players are bound to become cynical. We're essentially having keys jingled in our faces. Frankly, I just want to see more fixing up of the site. I understand development speed is limited by staff, I understand needing to get that bag, but surely a compromise can be found. At least update the older web pages, optimize the site better for both PC and mobile platforms, and finish updating the old Flash files around the site. Create a better foundation for the more exciting content that's already being made. Usually when I make videos, I try to keep them as evergreen as possible. This one is obviously dated by the title alone. Hell, even Serialum Ultimate has had a major content update since the Thoughts video on that game. As a sort of live service site, it does make Neopets awkward to make a critique on. I strongly avoid talking about whether games age or not, as it's usually either an unreasonable or semantic argument, depending on the person. But the live service model is one of the few times I can say a game ages, because the product itself changes with new content, updates, or patches. So I'm hoping this video will serve as a checkpoint in time for Neopets. I'm hoping I can look back and say, all of the grievances in this video have been addressed and solved. At the end of the day, I'm still interested in playing on Neopets. My feelings are ultimately mixed, but I'd rather see the site improve than see it regress to the struggle days of NFTs and Scientology. If you, viewer, are interested in playing, either new or returning, I'd say give it a try. See if you like it. Totally get it if you end up not having a good time, though. Since the account I made was for this video, these pets here need a good home. If you're interested, shoot me a Neomail, first come, first serve. I'll disperse them into the Pound ecosystem if there's no interest. Now that I think about it, maybe it's on brand for a Neopets video to create some FOMO. Anyway, thank you for watching. This was a shorter, more informal video than the usual, trying to bridge the content gap between larger products, and I'm still working on cassette beasts as we speak. As always, I appreciate the support, both from my Patreon subscribers and regular viewers. A very special shout out to Chintroid, Badass Mother 4000, and of course, Patrick. Thank you guys again for supporting. This channel really isn't big enough to justify paywalled content, so any support, even the algorithm stuff like comments, likes, and subscribing, is purely from the selflessness of others, to which I am genuinely grateful. With that said, have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one. Love you guys.